Raghu Marcus, and this is Jaimie, Catto. And Hari. Oh, it's been a long journey. For us, it's about 4 years, right? A little bit more. And we haven't seen each other in 4 years, except tonight, right? Isn't that amazing? We did this whole thing virtually together over all these years. Pretty amazing thing on its own. But for me, it's been a much longer journey since I met Ram.Dass back in the day. And I'm from Montreal, and that's how I met him, because I was program director of a rock and roll radio station there, and they asked me to help promote Ram.Dass, who I had no idea who that was. They said, Richard Alpert, Tim Leary? I'm like, oh yeah. Send me a tape, I gotta hear what they're doing. And right away, every word he said was, truth that I hadn't heard before. The same thing happened to you much later, right? Exact same thing, and exact same things happened to many people. Well, that moment I went to see him for the first time, and he opened the door and he was completely present, as you see in many aspects of this movie, where he was able to put himself aside and just be there completely for me, as if I was the last person on earth, okay? He had that ability to do that, and that's really what Jaimie, and what we've created here, and when we talk about becoming nobody. He was able to put himself aside, and that moment for me gave me complete trust and got me to India to meet Ram. So this is the culmination of that for me. And you?
Yeah. My great passion was to, having been so moved and helped in my life by the warmth and the humour. The moment I heard the first cassettes, how many decades ago, I thought, wow, I've really found my guy. Someone who expresses so unpretentiously. There's so much about the essence of these kinds of teachings that are so essential for everybody, but many of them are sort of drenched in trappings of dolphins and rainbows and crystals and religious paraphernalia, which is really off-putting to most people with taste. And so there's a lot of converts doing yoga, and that's great, but there's this mass of other people that I just really felt strongly like, I want this to exist forever. I want there to be a portal available forever that is always able to give out the good medicine of lightening up and treating adversity differently, like throwing out all the old rules we were given, which was so wrong growing up, to aspire to be a millionaire, to aspire to get lots of lovely positive feedback from everyone, all the wrong rules, never look vulnerable, never look weak, never fail. And to lighten up around all that anxiety that we've been brainwashed with in such an everyday people way, I just so moved by it. I want to make a way for it to exist forever. That's it.
Good start.
Not very biographical.
Yeah. Yeah, whole other movie. You guys got questions? Yes?
Did you hypnotize us?
Did you hypnotize us and put a little something in our water on the way in? No. Yeah, everybody drinking the Kool-Aid, that's it. Yeah, well, Ram.Dass, I don't know if it's in this film, says, or it's actually from Mayor Baba, great saint from India. Love is a disease, people catch it from each other, kind of a deal. So that's really, Ram.Dass is, his essence is the fact that he came back from India that first time after he met Neem Karoli Baba, Maharaji, after he found his quote-unquote map of consciousness, because he used to come down all the time from psychedelics, and he was really looking where, that's ephemeral, it's impermanent. Where is that thing that defines reality? And he found it, and he brought it back. But before he came back, Maharaji said to him, don't tell anyone about me, okay? While you're in America. And he could do nothing but that. That's what Be Here Now is based on, right? His experience. I asked him recently, what is it in you that you didn't pay any attention at all to what he told you? He said, I had this jewel and I couldn't do anything but share it. And that's who he is. And that's what this is all about, all of us being here in this one moment and sharing this moment. You know, that's what Be Here Now is about. But it was no choice. It wasn't something he thought about. He could only do that thing, share that jewel. And that's his real beauty. And of course, his sense of humor, which Jaimie, throughout this whole process, every week that we worked together, was we got to remember to make sure that we give enough breath to how important that was in Ram.Dass' teaching, how it is now, even right now. You know, there's a New York Times There's a New York Times article. Ram.Dass is ready to die. It came out today in the magazine, New York Times magazine. And I was we were Skyping together, and I told him how, wow, there's incredible press is going on around the movie, and Jaimie's here now. And he said, yeah, I hear I'm dead. I said, well, there is that thing, that article. He said, well, I'm going to stay alive and then show them up, that's all. So, it's all still intact, totally. Go ahead, sorry.
Jaimie, this is for you. Before I came here tonight, I was reading an article by Jonathan Franzen, and he was talking about climate change, and he was talking about it in the traditional settings of horrors of climate change, but towards the end of the article, he was talking about acts of goodness and different things we can do as forms of climate change. And I'm curious, with this film, with your workshops, with your other films, what would you consider if you think about climate change in that way, what would you feel are your contributions to climate change?
My contributions to climate change? I've got quite a big carbon footprint, so I've contributed quite a lot to climate change, sadly. Although I do think people who are doing good things for the world should be exempt from that rule. But what Ram.Dass talks about as activism is that the greatest act, and I agree with this, that the greatest activism we can do is to work on ourselves. Because as we all, I don't like to use the word work, but to raise our consciousness and be in the kind of mindset of this film where we're looking through the eyes of patience, kindness to ourselves, not critiquing ourselves and flogging ourselves and lightening up around anything. Without doing that first, then any regime change or any new paradigms or structures we try to build, they're still going to be coming from the scarcity paradigm. So the first thing we have to do is make sure that where we're moving from is the most present, loving, kindness place first, then start building. So I do think the work on ourselves and being supportive and lightening up and being authentic with each other. So every time you're more authentic about your mess, gives me feel more ease and permission to be relaxed about my mess. And then the real intimacy and connection that we all crave is available. But I think it has to start with all of us opening up our hearts and each other's.
And actually there's an article that discussed this, one of the things that came out around the movie. And Ram.Dass said, they asked the question somewhat like that. Can you do social action, or are you going to be just sitting there on your pillow meditating, doing it? It's all for yourself, And Ram.Dass said what Jaimie just said. Yes, you work on yourself so that you can connect. You can't begin to connect if you don't have that freedom and that open heart. At the same time, you're doing whatever you feel you need to do, so they're not mutually exclusive at all. They go on at the same time.
Can I just add to that, I believe that when one does a lot of stuff which opens your heart, you're naturally just not going to do the thing which is harmful. you're going to think twice about, am I going to buy that product that's covered in plastic, or am I going to take a paper bag? And you're more likely to do something of service that's going to be helpful to people around you if your heart is open. So it definitely has a more efficient side to it. It's not just the woo-woo self-development part.
I was so touched. I'm so touched still. One of the most powerful moments is when the love for you came out. I mean, because even you were even seeming to doubt or wonder or needing it, and boy, did he give it to you.
He gave it to me, and
Oh
then
boy!
cracked.
Oh my God! But when you talked about all the different selves that you have, and also all the stuff in the body, I really relate to that. And I'm wondering how you coordinate how you feel about that, and what you've learned from him. If you could expand that a little bit more.
Well, we don't all have to, like he says, you find the way that's great for you. I noticed that I feel a lot in my body.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, the things I've learned with like a little bit of Vipassana mixed with some bastardized Taoist dissolving or whatever it takes to go inside and be a willing participant, be someone who's willing to feel my feelings, has been a big release and discharge for me. And Ram.Dass, considers it to be all thoughts, but he also said to Nina, who was emceeing the Q&A yesterday, and he said to her, I'm a fraud, I've abandoned the body. So I'm sure he thinks different things about it on different days, as we all do. I don't think there's just one, I really believe, find the way that what works for you. And me, with the amount of churning anxiety and bullshit that goes on in my body, to ignore all that and just think, oh, well, it's just thoughts, it doesn't work for me.
So how do you deal with it?
First of all, how I personally deal with it is be a human who's willing to feel some of my uncomfortable feelings. That's how I hope everybody starts. We're so comfort addicted, living in a culture of get a headache, take a pill. All of us think we should be comfy all the time. The moment we feel something edgy, or we just run straight to Facebook or the fridge or the pipe. We don't like feeling uncomfortable feelings, but to begin with the willingness to feel uncomfortable feelings and be in a yin, curious listening instead of a running away, abandoning, corking, to be curious and listening to those things, suddenly a whole world of information and data and self-care. I think that's what self-love is, being willing to feel your feelings without escaping. And so that's what works for me.
I concur with you, and at the same time say Ram.Dass is correct. It is all from a thought.
There you go, you see?
Okay? Just for the record.
Could you guys speak to where you were at the beginning of the process, and then through the 4 years, what your personal takeaways were from the experience, and having to decide what went into this project and what the overall message was? What did that look like for you?
He was asking, well, how do we make the decisions on what was in and what was out, what was the process like? I had to eat a lot of humble pie. My takeaway was that there was a lot of humble pie to start with, because I came from the sort of glory of One Giant Leap, which was this like effortless perfection of things. And the guys at the foundation were like, yeah, he did One Giant Leap, we love him, and we'll let him do it. And I had to start again 3 or 4 times. Made a whole cut, sent it over, knew it wasn't quite right. That Raghu hit me with everything I hated about it, and it's awful when someone tells you stuff that you already think, that you thought you could get away with. And so I had to eat a lot of humble pie saying, like, I'm sorry, would you mind saying to the board I'm starting again from scratch? And it was always his difficult conversation he had to have. And I'm calling from London. And by the end, I just realized how important this was for me, that these teachings that have moved me so much, and I just want to make work this and other things. I want to make work so that I hope everybody here, at least one moment during that, felt that it spoke to you personally about your life. There might have been one or more moments where you've heard him say something and went, oh God, yeah, and had a little small, medium or large aha moment. And I just want to make work that sends as many ripples of consciousness and goodness and aha moments as a constant resource forever. And it just kind of really reinforced that for me as an artist, that's my job, is to create stuff that expresses as much usness and togetherness and awakens that part of us that's the same as Ram.Dass. We're all the same, and to awaken that and make that come forth is just everything I want to do as an artist.
All I can say is I had trust from the first moment to the last, okay? And that was it. And that trust enabled us to be able to talk completely frankly all the time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There never was a time when there was any pulling of punches or anything like that. And sometimes it got rough. We went through some rough periods. So I think that really added to what this finally is. Yeah, that ability to have that kind of trust. Huh?
Whenever you start a project, you start it with an idea, but any artist here will tell you, whether they write poems, songs, or films, or whatever, that it has a life of its own. You know, you're devotional to it. You're in your yin, curiously listening to it. And if it suddenly goes left, like this film has kind of become the film that people want to send each other when they have a relative who's dying, or someone who's close to them that's dying, or they've just had someone that died, or they're dying. It seems to be like a huge demand in the email and to all of us of people saying, can I have it at this hospice? Can we have it? So that was not the intention, but that's obviously what it wants to be, is a resource, maybe the only mainstream bit of media that goes that deep into things to do with death. So that wasn't the intention, but that's what it wanted to be. And that, as an artist, you know, is the great invitation, is to have an idea, but it's not a fixed idea.
I'm sorry, I have to leave early, but I just wanted to say I love your sense of humor with his sense of humor. It was so beautiful and open, and you're sharing, you're asking and receiving the answers, and even your walk at the end is beautiful.
I think so much intimacy, thank you, happens when we are all talking about our fallibility. Most of life is about trying to look perfect. Look at all of your Instagrams. When was the last time you posted a picture with your face looking a bit you know, never. You pick the prettiest one, you know. And to sit, and that's quite an anxious place for all of us to find ourselves, to sit with Ram.Dass and constantly send ourselves up and laugh at our fallibility and trip over our heartstrings and spill the wine and have the freedom and the relaxation to all be crazy and messy together out of this perfection addiction is, it's really relaxing. And I think that's how the aperture of intimacy widens, is when we share more of the mess and more of our fallibility and craziness, and we all go, oh, me too, rather than keep up the shop window that we've all edited ourselves down to.
Well, it was beautiful watching it.
Thanks.
And really, the humor between you was fantastic. Sorry.
Hi, another couple, maybe. Oh, right?
Yes, exactly. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, it took me a while to get into the film. You had me at the title, literally, and to me, it's and really that's been my process lately, especially lately, of really like divestiture, the inner and the outer, and so I love that you showed him, you know, with the coiled hand, and I'm not aware of what happened to him, and I would love to hear a little bit about that and how he approached that. To me, that would be really helpful, and to me, it really was about dying to the world. I mean, I love that. I think it's an incredible thing to send to someone who's dealing with mortality, but also it's about dying each day. So,
There's a really great movie called Fierce Grace, which goes more into that, but Raghu will speak more about this.
Okay, just, you're saying you didn't know that he had had a stroke, really, wasn't, yeah. Yeah, 22 years ago, he's been in a wheelchair and half his body is paralyzed. So he's had a lot to face with, especially that he has aphasia, which is part of a stroke side effect. Yet he used to be, as you can see in this film, one of the greatest orators, entertaining, funny, and penetrating, and clear, and all of it, right? And that got taken away, and he lived with that, and as he's gone through these years, he has become what he pointed to, much more. And that is very evident by this wonderful interview that she was talking about with a chat, really, with Jaimie and Ram.Dass. And that comes out so beautifully, his real presence. And that, when you just sit with him, you come to a retreat, you're just able to sit with that is a pleasure, big time. Somebody who's not sitting there thinking about themselves all the time, or worrying about what people think of them. You know, all the bullshit that we do on a day-to-day. So it's, it's extraordinary, the state that he's in, given all of the physical ailments. Right? Am I right?
Well, I just want to say really quickly, you know, my spiritual path has been different, even though my last name is actually Dass. I was born with that name. Half Indian. And I would always explain my name like, you know, Ram.Dass. It's a very common Indian name. But to me, it's very universal, even though, you know, that hasn't been my specific path. I think it would appeal to people of all paths, which I guess was his message, that there is no path.
Well, his particular is the path of the heart, so that, and not so much the intellect, although he's a major intellect, and he did a lot of studies, Buddhist studies, and all of our retreats, there are Jack Kornfield, Sharon Saul, all these great Buddhists that have brought back these wonderful traditions, and they mix in with what it is that we represent, Ram.Dass represents. And so that heart wisdom is really what it's about. Did you have a question?
Yes, Jaimie. My question is, the first time in 90, I think, the first time in 92, where you met Ram.Dass at a retreat, could you speak about that impact of that time? Like, did your life take a radical turn, or had it already started to turn and he just kind of pushed it away?
Yeah, I think it would already take, when I was having like excruciating mental illness as a late teenager and early 20s and panic attacks and quite debilitating. So when I heard the tapes for the first time and it was a lightening up, that was like a really big turning point. And then he was doing a retreat in the UK, and I was about 24, and I think my girlfriend was pregnant with our first daughter at the time as well, so it felt like a huge time to sort of leap into that. And I think the thing I just remember most, two things I remember most about that retreat, it was a long time ago. One was that Ram.Dass, unlike most healer schmealer people who run workshops at his level, you know, like sort of senior level, they don't tend to have lunch with everyone. You know, they go and meditate and process everyone's karma, and then they come back after lunch. But he was just standing in the queue in the cafeteria with everyone holding a tray, and I just fell in love with him even more at that moment. And then the other thing I remember was just so much weeping. He talks about when he first met Maharaji that Maharaji said something to him about his mother. He said the only English word, spleen, because his mum had died of cancer. He just said spleen, and it just unlocked him at that moment. He just had this flood of tears, but like the tears of homecoming. And I had a lot of that when I was on that retreat. It was like the first time I'd been in a community of people who were all vibrating so much with this much love. And it just cracked me, you know. I remember weeping in those 4 or 5 days more than I'd ever, probably a whole lifetime of crying came out, and I think it was super healing for me.
Beautiful.
It's the same, it was the same for me. I mean, maybe I wasn't as mentally disturbed as you were as a teenager, but I was pretty unhappy. And then, you know, and in that real turbulence, you start looking, right? You become open because you just don't want to be unhappy anymore. And that's how it happens for all of us. And if we're fortunate, I mean, meeting someone like Ram.Dass, who, as I said, can put his stuff aside for the moment that you're there. And that's a unique thing. Yeah. Okay? The retreat. Oh. We have this wonderful, I just moved to Ojai to be with my friends here, and we're starting Love, Serve, Remember, which is the foundation all of this stuff emanates from, is putting together, hopefully, a center there, and we run retreats there a couple times a year. So October 31st, through that weekend, we have a lovely retreat. Ram.Dass gets Skyped in. We have Lama Suryadas, who's been with the greatest beings that have been around the last 150 years, including Neem Karoli Baba, Karmapa 16th, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. I mean, incredible transmissions he has gotten. And Nina Rao will be there singing every night. I will be there, and it's too bad you can't come over one of these times, huh?
Budget permitting.
Yes. Well, yeah, we'll see.
How do we join?
Go to ramdass.org, 2 S's, /events, and you will see all the retreats that we do. And we do them in Maui and we do them in Ojai. Yeah.
While we're talking about websites, just shut this up, because I know Amanda's here, and I can see she's been to grind her teeth.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about activism before. For me, this is my activism, is to make things that go like a message in a bottle, and how many people can it possibly reach to create as many good vibes and respects as, you know? So we would really appreciate it if you would, after this evening, you know, tweet and post and Instagram and write and say how much you loved it. But even more, go to becomingnobody.com. We just, I think, opened up in 3 more cinemas in LA, and we're opening up in more and more and more. And on the website has all the different places you could send your friends to in different states in America to see it. and also just to find out there's going to be extended versions of the clips, which are quite short in the film. There's going to be longer ones on the site eventually, and so Amanda would like you to all sign up at becomingnobody.com, becomingnobody.com, becomingnobody.com.
You get some stars on the way to becoming
Yeah.
nobody, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Instagram handle.
What's the other thing?
The Instagram handle is Becoming Nobody Film.
Becoming Nobody Film. Jaimie Catto.
You had a question. Can you yell it?
Can it be seen internationally?
It is now getting international distribution. It's in Canada. It'll be in some countries in Europe and Australia and all that. Yeah, and it'll eventually, it'll be on one of the, hopefully Netflix or one of those streamers next year. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know if either of you, thank you for doing all this, Raghu and Jaimie. I want to know if either of you watched the film with Ram.Dass.
Yeah. Yeah, more than once, numbers of times.
Jaimie, have you?
No.
And I just, what is his feeling? I mean,
He said, "This looks like a bore. Who would want to watch this guy all the time?" Rapping. Something like that, yeah. And then I said, "I think you have to think outside of, you watching it." And then we finally went, it was in the Maui Film Festival, and we went there in a beautiful theater and everything. He was blown away by the reaction of the people. He got it, totally. But he doesn't care about himself. So.
Quick question. First of all, thank you guys for making this a reality. You guys have mentioned Instagram a number of times. Jaimie, you mentioned it about how there's this sort of like way in which this social media tools are used to project this image of perfection. And I think that plays a lot into kind of the exact opposite of becoming nobody. So what do you guys feel, and how does Ram.Dass feel about the world and the state that it's in, where everyone's sort of addicted to this idea of projecting these identities and has these tools at their disposal all the time? We're looking at these images all the time and feeding into these modalities, which is so different from when he was younger, when you guys were younger in the 60s or whatever, where, free love and the summer of love, and these things weren't even in people's consciousness at all. They didn't exist. So what's his take? Does he, and do you guys feel as though, would Ram.Dass say that these things are just more distraction and that we're getting further and further away from the truth?
Let me answer that in a way that, like, when you first see this movie and the first credits roll, and it says Love, Serve, Remember Films and Google Empathy Lab, and some people would go, "What? How are they getting together with Google? It's kind of the same question you're asking. It's just a little more reaching." So I'll briefly tell the story. The woman who created the Google Empathy Lab, her name is Danielle Creddick. And the purpose of the lab is to inform artificial intelligence division of Google about human values for the programmers and the developers, so that this stuff gets flowed into. And she thought Ram.Dass, she came and chased me around a retreat in December just to get access to Ram.Dass. And it was strictly because she wanted to bring in the values that he represents, that you see right here, that you would be able to feed through Google. And in the end, the Empathy Lab helped us enormously to be able to get the movie out through theaters with their financial power and their just who they are, right? And she had that. And the whole thing is about how to bring undefended heart, which is really what's represented here. Yes, you are dealing with people who are so far into their intellects, but look what they have created. Yes, there's great, it's really great that we can communicate digitally, and it's got the opposite, which is really sucking us and identifying us and doing all of the things you're talking about. But Ram.Dass is really happy to know that this is happening, and that people like Danielle are doing what she's doing, and he very much is happy to be part of it, and we have a wonderful partnership with them in order to really allow this heart to seep into what is represented by a company like Google and artificial intelligence.
You could really look at social media like a neutral thing. I mean, the way we're using it, because we're so narcissistic, self-cherishing, addicted to comfort freaks, it has become what it becomes. But knowing that, you know, you can give someone water in a way that refreshes them, or give someone water in a way that drowns them, how you use it. So like you know, we're talking about activists and how we want to, you know, move forward. If everybody here agrees, we don't want to keep putting this fake, I'm so pretty, I'm so perfect image of ourselves, which is actually perpetuating anxiety at the bottom level. If we all agree with you, then let's all pledge this week that everybody post one photo of yourself not looking good this week. Whatever you're trading off, looking good, sacrifice it this week. If you're trading on looking rich and a big shot and everyone thinks you're doing so well, come out really scruffy in a hobo driving a crappy car this week. Or if you're really beautiful, physical beauty is a thing you've been trading off, do your makeup this week like you're a total freak so everyone thinks you've totally lost it. You know, throw onto the fire the perfectionism that you're trading off, and then we can all be part of turning Instagram into an authentic window instead of a perfectionist window. We can start it here.
You'll start first.
I have always, you've seen my Instagram.
All right, we can't stay here any longer, apparently. I thought we could stay all night, Michael. But
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for
having
having
me.
us.
Thank you.